Howdy, folks. Happy Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Sorry for the delay here. Ek will be joining us in a few minutes, and we have, as usual on Fridays, Kevin Allen. Russ, start us off with the pre-show.
Well, as of today, the Tennessee Titans have 13 players that have tested positive now for COVID. That's not including team employees. We don't know about the Raiders yet because the Raiders had that problem in the locker room a week ago where they had an unauthorized person in there. They've already been fined twice for not wearing masks right. And then their team went out to, I think, a children's hospital. And even though they wore masks, they're not supposed to be doing anything in public. So they're in trouble for that. So I don't know if they're going to be the next team that's in trouble. But I have to believe now with Tennessee having 13 guys, no matter how big the roster is, I don't know if they're going to play next week either. Like, they haven't announced that yet, but I just have a feeling they're going to have a hard time fielding a team next week.
Well, they said the Titans-Steelers game was going to be moved to week 7.
Yeah, October 25th, I think, is the date. And the interesting part is that Minnesota, which played Tennessee, fortunately hasn't had any positive cases right now, so their game against Houston is still on right now.
Well,
Right.
I heard a proposal yesterday that does make a little sense because, we know that the timing of the playoffs, everything is fluid based on what's going on right now, that if games have to be postponed, that they essentially leave a week 18 completely empty and have all the games that need to be played in that week 18 before playoffs, because a lot of those games could determine playoff spots.
Yeah,
So
I mean, you have to believe with Tennessee the fact that they are already postponed and there's a 14-day period or at least a 7-day period. They're not practicing at all. All they're doing is Zoom calls. So by the time they get back out on the field, I don't know if it's even going to be fair to have them try and play next week.
Well, Kevin, I thought this was the reason why they expanded these practice squads. The practice squads are, I think, 17 or 18 players, and the whole reason for that was if players were positive, they could activate them from the practice squad and not miss games.
Yeah, and, it's up to you to safeguard your team so that, you can't complain that, hey, look, I got to use my practice squad. Well, then, keep your guys safe. Yeah, I mean, it's just a shame that there, one team is causing, all this problem. Because if they end up missing 2 games, then having one extra week is not going to help at the end of the season if you're going to miss 2 games.
Yeah, we don't know about the second yet, but I'm just saying. And you're right. They may just say, hey, you got to use what you got. But, man, that's going to be rough if they do because they won't even practice. They're not even practicing. But anyhow, that's it.
Hey, everybody. I'm fully sorry for that. I got
your perfect timing. We just ended the pre-show.
It's got a really important call with a guy I've been trying to talk to for 2 weeks about some goalie rumors and stuff like that. And, so anyway, here I am. I apologize.
Start the show.
Everybody.
You can start the show.
I just poor family. Just cursing, screaming type thing as I'm trying to get it together. And I got off the phone and suddenly my computer doesn't work. And I'm sorry.
This is my next 4 or 5 days with the draft coming up.
I know. I just went nuts with everybody here, and I feel really bad.
Don't worry. Just start the show.
All right, just start the show. All right, here you go. Ready? Just start the friggin' show. Come on. Right. All right. Hello, Hockey World. It's Friday, October 2nd, 2030. 2020.
2030.
I'm Buck Rogers.
Yeah.
I'm Jan Levine, and if he's like this on October 2nd, just wait until next Friday.
And if it's 2030, I must be
I'm Russ Cohen.
years old.
I'm Russ Cohen. I have a birthday tomorrow, but man, did I age.
And
Kevin Allen.
And I'm Ekman. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. A nice, relaxing, and calm atmosphere.
Ek, I've been coming on the show for a long time, and you've missed a date, here and there by a day or two. But this is the first time you've missed by a decade.
If you're going to go, what's my motto? Kev, you know my motto?
Yeah, go big. Yeah.
If it's worth doing, it's worth
overdoing.
I mean, I think it's worth noting that in 2030, the Leafs still haven't won the Cup.
I know. If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. That's what we say around here. In this case, I overdid the missed date by quite a lot. Let's get right to it, kids. We have a very minor trade, which we really don't even have to really probably discuss. The Panthers made a trade. You saw that, guys?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and the only thing I can say about this is the Ottawa Senators now have the market cornered on Browns because now they have 3. Josh, Logan Brown, their first round pick, and Connor Brown, who they got from the Leafs.
Nice.
And this does, there was an indication a couple days ago that Pierre Dorian was looking to trade some of his 13 draft picks because they have so many of them, and they have so many youngsters already in the organization, and that he was basically looking for bodies, looking for players. And Brown is, he's a 5'6", and he's on an RFA, so they need to get to the cap floor, so they'll give him probably a 1 or 2 year deal. And he helps the depth of the blue line. So not a bad deal.
Probably an example of like the agent. Probably this feels like an agent trade to me. You know what I mean? Like where an agent says, the Senators have interest in my guy, goes to the Panthers and says, what are we going to do with this? You can do anything with him particularly, and the Panthers say, I probably don't have a spot for him right now, but. That's what it feels like. With that,
although it's kind of odd that the Panthers
don't have speculation. Like I have no idea whether it is or isn't, but that's just what it's just kind of the trade. It feels like.
No, it's true, but it's kind of odd that the Panthers are willing to trade defensemen. That makes me.
Well, it makes you think about things a little bit, right? So, let's talk about goalies for a second because I know we talked about them a lot, but they are worth mentioning again because they were the focus of my point. I think I was just on the phone call I was just on there, which made my blog late, maybe late here, and we're not going to get back into that. And actually took us to the year 2030. So here we go. The Calgary Flames apparently, according to this guy, he used the word the linchpin, which I looked up, to make sure that it was what a linchpin was exactly, which wouldn't know what it is, but I want to know exactly what it is. And it's not really the right term to use. So I will say this. The Calgary Flames are they're controlling, they have their, as I wrote on my blog today, they have their finger on the first domino. They're sitting there and they're waiting. And this is why. And he said there's 4 different scenarios, and I'll run them through you real quickly, and then you can tell me what you think, Kevin, and everybody else. The idea here is that they like Markstrom a ton in Calgary. Markstrom is like, and it's rare that you can sign somebody like Markstrom. If they can sign Markstrom away from Vancouver, not only making themselves better, but their arch rival worse, is a really intriguing thing for them. Mm-hmm. That's it's a serious scenario. Now, if nothing else, then they could drive up the price on Markstrom for Vancouver and make that a little bit harder for them. Meanwhile, you have the Maple Leafs looking at, he told me, Matt Murray and Thatcher Demko.
Yes.
And so that also has to do with, because if Calgary doesn't sign, Matt Murray and Markstrom, then Demko goes back. If Markstrom stays there, then Demko could leave, right? But if Markstrom's gone, then obviously they're going to stick with Demko, right? So that's another thing. And then he says, Calgary also has some interest in Holtby, which is another team that, and there's other teams out there with interest in Holtby. Right. And just bring up my notes real quick is what he told me. But he told me, there was a couple specific teams that had interest in Holtby. And then also the Flames have a small interest, although probably smaller than anyone else, in Lundqvist. And Lundqvist can get signed before anyone else. So the interesting thing about Lundqvist is that he can get signed soon. And if I'm talking really quickly and not making any sense, I apologize. But the Lundqvist thing, I don't think is as likely because I do think that indeed Markstrom, they want to make a play for Markstrom. And if you sign Lundqvist early, that's an issue. However, I will say this. Lundqvist, there seems to be a lot of interest from San Jose all of a sudden. That's what he told me. So we'll find out about that. I still maintain that and I talked to people there and still it's absolutely true, even though no one wants to believe me, that that the Devils have interest in Lundqvist.
No, we do believe the Devils have interest.
No, but no one thinks he'll go there.
Yeah. Nobody knows if Lundqvist will actually play there.
Right. Well, all I can say is this: they've been talking long enough that at this point, I think he would have nixed it completely if there was no possibility. It's still being discussed. So
you're never going to close options. But Kevin, what do you think of everything that Ek just
said?
Well, I think all that is absolutely true in terms of what Calgary is interested in. But I don't know. I would call it the linchpin because that presupposes that Calgary is the place that all those goalies want to go. And I've been working at this from the other end, and I don't get that feeling that everybody wants to go to Calgary. I think guys want to go to Colorado for sure.
Right.
There's some intrigue in going to Edmonton to be part of the Connor McDavid show. Just the idea that sooner or later that team is going to get better. So, the feeling I get is that Joe Sakic, he is a man of his word, and he said publicly twice that he thought he would keep his goalies. But I think for a guy like Lundqvist, I sense that Sakic has some respect for Lundqvist. And I think he's the type of goalie that you bring in when, the odds makers came out with their, their pre-season odds. And usually the defending Stanley Cup champion is the team to win again. And they were not. Now, obviously, odds makers know all the salary cap hell they're going through there in Tampa Bay.
Right.
But they have Colorado. And I think there's a lot of people who believe that, from what we saw with Colorado, the feeling that they'll be in on Taylor Hall or one of the big free agents.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Joe Sakic looks around and Lundqvist, who you might be able to get on a 1-year deal for a reasonable price, can come in and be a goalie for him.
Yeah.
So I would say that would be a good fit. I can't see Lundqvist wanting to go to San Jose. You don't really know who can win. It's not like the old days, but I don't think it's San Jose.
Yeah.
I would tend to agree.
I have heard, and he said that he heard from Lundqvist's camp. Now, this is early, so they, early on you can make certain kinds of demands because you're just saying what's out there, right? But the early demand is that Lundqvist wants to go to a place where he can be the starter. Now, that is,
but that's without a doubt. There's not even a question about it.
Right.
That's that he wants to go where he can play.
Right.
That's
right.
first and foremost. But I think he could do that in Colorado. I think he could do that in Carolina. I think he could do that in Calgary. I think he could do it in Edmonton.
Chicago.
Well, I think Toronto was interested in him too, so that's another one.
So there's
I'm not so
sure. The thing about San Jose is, look, Lundqvist is close with Carlson, so that's why I think you're always going to hear that. But I don't think it's.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. What's interesting is, though, I looked up in Colorado because I didn't even know who the goaltending coach is, and it's like Jyrki Pakala, who's not that much older than Henrik Lundqvist.
That's pretty funny, yeah.
Well, going back to what you were talking about, Ak, specifically the Calgary situation.
Yeah.
Markstrom in Calgary makes sense, but there still seems to be that connection between Markstrom and re-signing in Vancouver. And the interesting thing I heard this morning, I think, was from Elliot Friedman talking about the Ekman-Larsson rumors, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But the connection to Boston and the connection to Vancouver, one of Ekman-Larsson's good friends is Markstrom. So it might be Markstrom staying in Vancouver might be tied to their ability to get Ekman-Larsson there. And I'm sure that deal is going to be fairly complex, but that would lead me to believe that if they're in on Ekman-Larsson, that they think that they can re-sign Markstrom. Maybe
he brought up an interesting thing, Mike, along those lines. And I said, I know Markstrom wants to stay in Vancouver. You would think he would want to stay in Vancouver. He's had success there. Obviously, he likes the team.
Yep.
And then he said to me, he said, well, yes and no. He said, and he talked to somebody who knew Markstrom pretty well. And the response to that was, if Markstrom stays in Vancouver, the second he has any kind of struggles at all, people are going to be Demko.
Unless they trade Demko.
And unless they trade Demko.
Yeah, which they will.
The issue is, so because the Calgary, it's Markstrom's show. It's his show, and I think that goalies don't love it when because the backup goalie. Let's face it, the backup goalie is always the grass is always greener goalie. Like that's just like the backup quarterbacks in football or whatever. They're always the ones that like, oh yeah, So and Demko just did something amazing that everyone's going to remember next year. And if Markstrom's going to sign this major contract. There's a lot stacked against you there if you're Markstrom in a way.
The pressure will be on, no doubt, and that's why they would have to trade Demko and in a way hope that Demko doesn't do as well wherever he goes, because then everybody's going to say, "Oh my God, Demko's standing on his head with Carolina or Toronto," and then it makes them look bad. But I can't really think that way because, based on the way Markstrom has played the last couple seasons, he is a good goaltender, and he's proved that he can play in that market. And if they add an Ekman-Larsson on defense, that's going to improve them a lot. But just one other thing, your Toronto speculation, Murray makes a lot of sense for the reasons we've talked about many a time on the show. And Demko makes a lot of sense for two reasons. One, he's 24 years old. He's an RFA after this season. He's only making $1 million a year. That would clear $4 million in cap space for the Leafs once they trade Frederik Andersen, because you'd assume that if they're trading for Demko, they're trading Frederik Andersen to basically clear his salary. That opens up $4 more million in cap space. there's your money if they go after Pietrangelo or one of these other big defensemen.
So what's funny about that, Mike, and guys, and I want your opinion on this, Kev, is that the so I like I said jokingly in my blog today, where the goalies are going to end up, like we did. Kevin had a great blog. We all put our inputs in there. It's really fun. And then but where they're going to end up, it could be someone's PhD project. That's how complex it is. It's like it's beyond, And
like quarterbacks this offseason in the NFL.
It's like it's just crazy insane. And the one thing though, I think that people aren't looking at enough, and I tried to look at when I did my picks for the goalies, where I'm a firm believer in certain goalies for certain kinds of styles of teams. Okay, like I honestly do believe there are some goalies that play better, that need a ton of shots to play better. There are some goalies that are can be solid if they don't get a shot for 30 minutes and then have to make a big save on a breakaway or whatever. You have different kinds of goalies, right? Matt Murray is a goalie who can take a lot of shots. Mm-hmm. He's a goalie who wants to be on a team, and his success in Pittsburgh came from a Penguins team that was like, high flying, mostly offense team. And that's what we have in Toronto. So to me, that's a great fit for that reason. Then there's things like that. Like I think that you have to look at the goalies in different ways. Like there are some goalies who really don't play well if they get a very few shots, but Matt Murray was able to do both. He was able to do when the Penguins would hunker down and play solid defense, he was solid.
But with Murray, they have to spend more money and give up assets.
Right. Demko has shown he can take a lot of shots. Like that's early on. He's like,
and with Murray, they have to be careful because he's been injured every year to not overwork him. But I agree with your point, Ak. But the whole goal here, on top of the Leafs upgrading or staying the same in goal, is to improve their defense. So with any hope, Kyle Dubas will be making that team into a more efficient defensive club, so that a goaltender won't have to stop 45 shots a night.
Right. But then again, you can get some guys in there, and like Lundqvist has been a goalie through his career, I think, who's been a solid goalie he can face a lot of shots too, but I also get the sense that he's a good goalie at like focus and concentration all the time. Like
this could mean nothing, but this is why I'm skeptical of Lundqvist in Toronto. Traditionally, and if you look at his career stats, one of the teams he has played worse against than anybody is the Maple Leafs. He's struggled against them
the Canadians is the worst.
Canadians is the worst. Yeah. But and I don't know what he does against other Canadian-based teams, but against Toronto, they used to put Cam Talbot and they used to put other goaltenders there, Russ, instead of putting Lundqvist because he struggled. I don't know if it's the sight lines that.
I think it's too many photographers. He wants to look good, and there's all the photographers there in Toronto.
No, everybody's got their thing, but the idea is, I don't think it's the building. I just think. Yeah. He just didn't do well against them. Doesn't mean he can't do well for them.
No.
Kevin, your thoughts on that?
On which part?
Oh, I'm sorry. I know it's a lot. On certain goalies for certain teams.
Well, I think there is something to that, but to me, I think that's an element they look at when they're getting close, but it's not the primary thing. Like, as you're splitting hairs and trying to decide between, then somebody will talk about, what you were just talking about. So, and I think there is something to that, particularly about if you're a really great defensive team. And I think that's more important, the ability to make saves when you're inactive for 5 or 6 minutes. Like Marty Brodeur was great at that.
It's focus. It's all focus. It's how the focus is, right? It all comes down to focus.
But I just think this whole goalie market is going to be so much fun because it's really going to be difficult, and it's really hard to kind of project. And it looks now like we could have more goalies in it with the.
I know. That's all we need.
I think just because you brought that up, and because we heard now maybe Korpisalo, I think Yarmo's doing that simply because he knows Korpisalo doesn't make a lot of money, so he can undercut a lot of teams, and I think he just wants to see what he can get. I think he's throwing a wrench in it for other teams. Honestly, I think that's what Columbus is doing.
But it's insane if they move Korpisalo, don't you think?
Listen, they paid Merzlikins. Korpisalo is a cheap goalie right now, and he's very good. He does have a market, but the idea is, I think he's just seeing what he could get because he knows the market's oversaturated anyhow, and it would hurt other teams.
But if the market's oversaturated, then you're not going to get much.
But he may not want to get anything. He may want to just foul it up for his competitor.
I'm not buying how it fouls it up. Can you explain it to me?
Yeah, me neither.
Well, okay, so He's only making 1.9. There might be 3 teams that instantly are interested in Korpisalo that would have been interested in other guys. They talk to Columbus. Columbus, maybe after a while says, you know what? I don't like any of these deals, and maybe some of those other goalies get signed.
So he's playing a shell game, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but I don't. I mean, usually you go back and those guys are still there because the same 3 teams are in.
The only reason you trade Korpisalo, in my opinion, the only reason you would trade him, in my opinion, is if you feel like that was the best he's ever going to play, right. And that he was incredible to the point where this value is just through the roof, and deep down that he's not that good.
I could see him trading.
It's like the only thing
I could. Yeah, I mean, trading at his highest value. I could see him trading Korpisalo to get some offensive help because we know that the Blue Jackets need scoring, and with this inflated market with 15 goaltenders out there, it'll be very easy for him to go out and get a 1B like Grice or not Khudobin, because Khudobin's probably staying in Dallas from the report.
He might not. That's not a guarantee.
No, Jim Nill said he wants to keep him there. Yeah. So, but basically, they could get a second stringer behind Merzlikins for probably half of what it costs Korpisalo. He saves money and gets offense in that deal. So that might be what he's trying to do.
But here's an example. So let's say, how long is Corey Crawford going to wait before he just takes Chicago's offer if he doesn't get anything better, right? I mean, there's going to be guys that at some point are going to want to move, or their deals that they're offered aren't going to be on the table for long. Leonard, too. Like if Leonard were to play around, how long would Vegas say, hey, look, we need to sign this proposed deal that we've been talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point.
Well,
before I get any further, I wanted to mention something that we're going to be doing on draft night because the 4 of us are here right now. And that is that, so Kevin Allen has a great podcast you do with Bob Duff, which names escapes me right now. I'm sorry, Kevin.
Hockey Debates.
Yeah, Hockey Debates podcast,
right?
Or by sportsbettingdime.com. That's our sponsor.
You got a nice long name. I like it. And they have a great podcast. Mike does a show does a podcast with Anthony, and Mike and Russ and Anthony do a show called Off the Post, which is on as well. And then of course the Hockey Buzzcast. So what we're going to do on draft night, from 6 to 9, I think the time could be. Time could change, but that's roughly where it's going to be. Is we're going to combine the podcast together on Bob and Kevin's feed that night, and we'll also be posting it into my blog. You'll be able to watch it like normal. I'm also trying to find a way I might be able to actually get it so we can have the chat rooms. You can go to there. Do you have a chat room too? Do you do it on the same format?
Yeah.
StreamYard.
Yeah.
StreamYard so people can get in there too. All right, that's good. You'll get some new people in there too. And let's get the chat going. And we're gonna have fun. So it's gonna be the first. It's gonna be from 6 to 9. It's gonna be great. I mean, we got Russ. Russ is, in my opinion, like one of the best prospects people on the planet. I've always said that. Kevin, who has more sources than anybody I've ever met. You've got me, who is me. I'm just gonna be me. Try to do the best. I'll be throwing out things that everybody.
Try your best.
I'm good entertainment. You can all say, "Oh, that's Then because if I say something, you can throw in the comments, "Oh, that just X said it." Well, the exact opposite will happen. You can throw that out there. That's good. You've got Mike, who's incredible at driving the bus and helping us go and helping keeping like 3-hour podcasts. Mike keeps a 3-hour podcast going like no one's business.
My uncle was a bus driver.
And Bob, who is awesome, says very little, but when he says something, it's like fantastic. And then we're also going to have Tom Laidlaw with us too. So
people will be sort of moving in and out. And we'll do 3 hours from 6 to 9. But as I told the guys beforehand, we might leak a little bit into that extra hour into the fourth hour, depending on where the draft is and how much trades are going on. So we'll be open ended on when we'll end, but we will start at 6.
Yeah.
And we're going to cover the draft. We'll have Russ there to do evaluations, but mostly we're going to be talking about, what's going on in the real world as well. And the real world being the trades and so forth.
It's going to be a blast. So I think it's going to be, and then we're going to do something very similar to this on UFA Day too. So we'll talk more about that as well as we get there. That's of course the 9th. All right, so let's move along here. I want to ask. Go ahead. With the mic, and then this is my question for everybody today. And Kevin, you and I were talking on the phone yesterday, or 2 days ago, and we actually mentioned this for a second, and I thought it was pretty funny because we were talking about a bunch of things, and it was the one thing we said together, and we both kind of stopped talking for a second, wondering what the hell it is. How good is Oliver Ekman-Larsson really?
Yeah.
Do we have any idea? I mean, do we really know what he is? He really?
Yeah, really good puck
Good
moving defenseman who can get you 50 points, play your top power play quarterback. He's really good.
He's really good. I mean,
And he's not been on the greatest team. You put him on a better team, he'll get more points.
No, I agree. I mean, but he's been up and down a little bit. I mean, and this last year he didn't exactly kill it.
Nobody on who on Arizona had a good year. Taylor Hall didn't have a good year.
No, that's true. That's all very true.
Well, what's interesting is what we don't know about him is what you don't know about young defensemen, and he's not young anymore. Which is how good can he be defensively? Last year when they played an excellent defensive style, and really it's what carried them. Throughout the season, it made them competitive. That was not one of his better years. In fact, it was one of his worst years.
Right.
He had a hard time with that. So I think X's question is a good one. Not in terms of like he is not a horrible defensive player. No. We just don't know. Like he's not Victor Hedman. He's a
top pairing defenseman, no questions asked.
Yeah, and he's a very skilled, elite level puck carrying defenseman.
Right, right.
A guy that can get 20 goals.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
thinkable. So
5 times he's been in Norris voting, as high as 2. He, like Kevin said, it wasn't his best year, but his career, he's averaging over 23 minutes a game.
Yeah,
right. I mean, he's definitely their
but
best.
He's never faced the pressures of being on a winning team, where the important thing is
that's fair.
There is some,
but
there's a little bit of mystery to it.
But he's been in the unusual position, Kev, that in Arizona he's had to carry. I mean, the one year I think 23 goals, he led the team in scoring. I mean, he's not only had to be a puck carrier and a power play quarterback, he's had to be like one of the main sources of their offense. Now, for $8.25 million, I'm sure wherever he gets traded to, a team that is going to expect him to be that as well, but not. Right. It's not going to solely be on him if he goes to Boston or if he goes to Vancouver.
And here's the other thing: since Tocchet has been there, he has shot a lot less based on this defensive system. He used to shoot the puck like 264 times. Last 2 years ago, he was 176, and this year he was pretty much on pace for the same. So you shoot less, you score less.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, the only best way for me to judge him in all the times, and I don't see Arizona play live that often either, which is the other thing. You got it. I think in order to judge a defenseman, you really got to see him live. I'm a big believer that's
fair.
Better. It's way easier to look at what a defenseman does live because you see how, like I look for how much they're quarterbacking the players around them. I look, because really good defensemen are often organizing everybody, and they're sort of like pointing out players that are open. They're picking up guys. They're making really good line changes, which is a big thing for defensemen, like the right line change, because they're not getting caught. And my biggest time that I've ever seen Larsson play in a situation where there was pressure, where he was on a good team, was the World Cup of hockey. Like watching him play in that tournament, and recently, when we had no hockey and they were playing old games again, I saw they had a Sweden game on there, and I watched it again. And I was reminded again, I was sitting right next to you, Kevin, during most of that tournament. And I remember us talking about how good Larsson was during that tournament. I remember talking about, he's better, man. He and Hedman are quite a pair. Like that. I remember having that conversation.
Yeah. I mean, we're just obviously splitting hairs on him here because, he's available, but, there's no doubt that, he's a premium player, and, I would change everything for Boston if he ends up there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on Hockey Reference, he rates similarly to like John Carlson and Kimmo Timonen, like the numbers that they project.
Okay, that's interesting.
Well, I mean, it's for all around. That's not just for scoring. So
I don't have a concept of is how good he is defensively. I guess like that was the big thing because we know his numbers, but I've really.
He's adjusted to Tocchet a little bit. He has. Playing a different game. Yeah, for sure. But it's the same thing they say about John Carlson.
Yeah,
I would say that discussion about John Carlson's defensive play, which I thought was misplaced, didn't help him in the Norris voting.
Right. Yeah. I almost think that Ekman-Larsson gets lumped in that category and I'm not comparing the two because they're two completely different defensemen, but Rasmus Ristolainen is a good defenseman on a bad team who plays 25, 26 minutes a night. And if you look at Ekman-Larsson in 2017 and 2018, he was minus 25 and minus 28. That's not because he's a bad defenseman. It's because he's out there all the time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the interesting thing I'm seeing with this Kev is the fact that he's got a no move clause, and the only two teams apparently he's prepared to waive it for is Vancouver and Boston. And that is, I think, in a way screwing Bill Armstrong because he can't really develop a market for him. Right. And if you look at those two teams, I mean, Boston can give them a lot of young players because they have a lot of in that organization. Vancouver, the rumor is that they would have to send back a guy like Brandon Sutter, who's making over $4 million. And based on the economic situation with the Coyotes, they don't want to take anybody back. They want to clear the $8 million salary and get young guys back.
Yeah, that's why the Boston thing is far more attractive, because the idea of getting draft picks and prospects is exactly what they want in this sort of deal. They don't want a $4 million player. They're trying to clear $10 to $15 million, starting with Ekman-Larsson's money.
Right.
And, they probably don't have to trade Kemper then, if you're going to trade Ekman-Larsson, because then if you trade Grabner, now you've gotten rid of $11 million, as long as you don't take anything back.
Right.
In the Ekman-Larsson.
Yeah, I'm not sure Kempner will want to be there after that, but but it's not It's not only Ekman-Larsson. This is where Russ and I were talking about this before the show. This is where I'm concerned about the viability of this organization. The name of Clayton Keller has been out there in terms of them trading, and he's
they're not trading.
That's insane.
I would hope not, but I mean, it's just
but when you hear those kind of things, you got to where do you think who planted that? You don't know.
Okay.
So
I'd be careful on that. And I don't, this guy didn't buy the team to strip it down. And, I think he's reacting to the marketplace.
Well, but think about what he's losing. He's losing Taylor Hall. He's losing Oliver Ekman-Larsson and another roster player. It's going to be hard no matter who they get in trade to recover from that, Kev.
Yeah,
well, I agree. But what, I don't begrudge a guy that's looking at the, playing pandemic hockey and, doing it in the short term, making some moves. Now, problem is that when you trade the guy, that turns into a long-term move because
right.
You don't get him back. But depending on what they get back. But I don't think this necessarily means. The reason I sort of launched on that is I've seen people say, "Well, here we go again." Same old stuff. The Coyotes' ownership is not going to be strong. Well, we don't know that. I think he's mostly reacting to the pandemic as opposed to this is the way I'm going to govern my team.
I think it's safe to say they're not going to spend to the cap. We know that.
Well, but
then it's close to the same old Coyotes then, isn't it? Because that's what they're used to, a team not willing to spend to the cap and a team not willing to keep their own players. Like they're losing more of their own players again. So,
are we going to cast the Buffalo Sabres?
Yes.
The same way, that. So that's just your idea is everybody needs to go to the cap regardless of what's going on in the.
Well, I mean, close to it. If you feel like you're a competitive team, yes.
Yeah. No, I disagree with that. I think you're allowed to react to the circumstances of your environment on the short term. Now, if he came in and there was no pandemic and he was doing that, I would agree completely with you.
Well, the question is, Kevin, is how many of these teams are going to be like Arizona? I mean, we've already heard the rumors about Kevin Adams having sort of fiscal restraint on him in Buffalo. The other teams like Florida or New Jersey or I mean Ottawa. Obviously, I mean everybody's hurting with the pandemic. What is half the league going to be on a budget?
Well, I mean that's what we're going to have to find out. I mean Nashville possibility as well. I mean we've heard Pittsburgh Penguins at $75 million. Now, but as I mentioned to Act just recently, I had a GM said, "Yeah, I'll believe that when I see it." So, but there's a bunch of teams, and then there are teams that are business as usual, and a lot's going to depend, in my opinion, on what the teams feel is going to happen with bringing back fans. because there are a lot of these owners that I don't think, want to lose the kind of money they're going to lose if we have to play most of the season without fans. So,
yeah, no, you're 100% right. I mean, that's a huge thing.
Yeah, I mean that's, I had someone say to me, "Well, they just got to get creative in finding ways to create revenue." Well, there are no other ways to create.
No,
revenue.
there's only so much
unless
revenue.
you're going to try online gambling.
Well,
Yeah, I mean they've maximized that. There is only so much revenue.
No, but I mean actually doing it themselves.
well,
How they're going to make money.
what's an even bigger dilemma is something that Elliot Friedman wrote about in his 31 Thoughts column this week, is the fact that we have a new CBA. Everything supposedly is nailed down, but the one concern is the NHL may not want to pay their players a full salary if they don't play a full 82 games. This is what we went through in baseball, Kev, where these players are going to be pissed off if they're going to be getting 75 or 80% of their salary plus the 20% escrow plus the deferred money. I mean, it's going to be a joke.
I completely agree with Elliot on that. I mean, that's a conversation I've had with a couple of general managers. Is I think everybody has assumed at some point we were going to play with fans, and now people are saying they don't know. They don't know. Like if we had to do this today, and we were going to play with a percentage of fans, you'd have the Tampa Bay Lightning, and of all teams, the Florida Panthers, able to bring fans into the building. And in Madison Square Garden, you wouldn't see a single fan.
What about the crazy concept?
I still think it would be a challenge for the Panthers to bring fans in.
I was going to say every night would look like a Tuesday night in Florida.
Want to know what I think would be fun? And I'm just throwing this out there, and I haven't heard this at all, but I think this would be fun, and I think this is something that the NHL should seriously look at. The outdoor rinks that they do, they have the outdoor rink thing and I don't know how much the outdoor rink concept costs, like to buy like the whole package to put. I know they drive
$1 million, Zach.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
it's $1 million.
Okay, so it's $1 million strip, but I mean, like actually, all that equipment, that seems like it would be more than that. But anyway, okay, so for $1 million, no,
that's a lot of money.
Well,
no, I think
it would be more than that, because you'd have to, right now you're using the equipment that you use over and over. And
right, that's what I'm saying.
You need 15 of those.
You need 15 of them, right?
Oh, 15 of these?
You find outdoor college football stadiums that aren't being used right now, and you play most of your games outside, and you sell tickets for really cheap. You sell them for like $5 a piece, but you got like 40,000 tickets in there, or whatever. Get people to come in the winter, have fun with it, and play. I mean, that to me, that could be fun.
I believe the NHL only has 2 of these machines. 2.
I know they only have 2 right now, so that's why I asked how much that would cost.
Well, the Rangers and the Islanders and the Devils could play on shifts at the rink in Central Park.
Right. They could set up something like that. You could do Franklin Field here in Philly or whatever. Where Penn.
Why don't you just set up an ice rink on a Carnival cruise?
Yeah, I don't think you could end up. You'd be in violation of the rules. I don't think you can put 40,000 in even outdoors.
Well, maybe not 40,000. Oh, you're right. But I'm saying that, okay, so as time goes on, it's definitely, because I do think that people are going to be very much afraid of, even when things are cleared up, of buying tickets to go inside somewhere and watch things happen.
Some people will and some won't.
But I think that the outside thing, and I know it's like, it sells out because it's a once in a while thing. But if you made the tickets cheap enough, and you're already, it's like that, or you're playing in front of no fans at all.
Then they're not making the money that they need.
They're not generating the revenue. Yeah, you got to have.
But they can generate more revenue than not having any fans in the seats. I mean, at some point, everything.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to
like when they said the Miami Dolphins are playing in like when they play or whatever. Isn't that like they're playing like front of like 15,000 or something like that, or 16,000?
Yeah,
that's basically the size of an NHL arena.
Right, but it's in a building that seats 60. So,
I know, but it's still those buildings are sitting there doing nothing. So I mean, if you do the same kind of spacing out,
think of all the, there's just one Dan Craig. Like you got to really babysit. There's an art to it, an outdoor hockey.
There is.
Like playing 3 games a week. What would happen? I mean, the logistics I fear would be make it prohibitive.
And what if I'm not saying but just saying like 1 game a week is like that. The rest of the time you've got like you're inside playing to empty stands. But once in a while you do an outdoor thing and you invite fans in. and you do it like, I don't know if it's once a week or if it's once every other week.
So
But you got it. You wouldn't be able to move that around, so you couldn't just buy 15. You'd have to buy 30.
You'd have to buy 30 of them, and that's why I'm wondering how much the whole process.
And then next year they won't need 30 of them.
So
no, but eventually, I mean, you have
rent 30.
No, but eventually you like sell the setup to like the city or whatever, and they could make their own like outdoor skating rinks and parks. I mean, I'm just trying to think outside the box here.
Yeah, you are, but I'm not.
You're in outer space.
But playing outside is the key, right? Like that is the key. Like
it would be better to be sure, but
right. And people like it. It's fun. It's interesting. We all agree that like playing in the snow is a blast. I mean, it looks good on television. It always does look good on television.
I'm sure Jerry Jones would rent out the Jerry Dome or whatever.
I'm sure he would.
To me, it just seems so simple, but I'm not naive. I know it's not, and that is, you get Donald Fear and the top players from the Players Association, and you get Gary Bettman representing the owners, and you get in and you work it out, and you say, look, the revenue is going to be down 50%. We can generate this amount of revenue. We're not going to have any fans. We'll play 50 games. This is the revenue we have. You take half, we'll take half. Now, that's what baseball tried to do, and it didn't work out.
Right.
So I know it's going to work, but to me, that's a pretty simple solution for this, is that, look, we'd love to give you your money because, we'd be getting more money, but, it's not.
Well, I mean, Kev, we didn't even mention it, but there is going to be a rollback next year. What was it, like 30% less salary because of
10% rollback that's paid over, I think, to the next 2 years, and the 20% escrow. Right. So so I mean, if you say, okay, that's one thing, then that's fine. But now you're saying, okay, that's one thing, and we're going to add, because we're going to have not an 82 game schedule, you're going to be paid a percentage. If they do that, there's going to be war.
Well, there is going to be war, but I guess the argument would be, or do you want to just not play at all, and we'll just come back when we
right?
Come
That's
back.
where it'll get down to that.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, and it's not. That's what I'm just saying is like, the logic says, just as X said before, something is better than nothing in terms of paying. If you're a player and you're an owner and you just want to play, but you don't want to lose. I mean, you're going to lose money no matter what you do. But you're not going to lose. You don't want to lose the amount of money that you would lose if you play an 82 game schedule.
Yeah. Right.
You go to the players and you say, look, let's just do 40. You get half the money. Well, that makes too much sense. But I don't think it would go that easily. I think players would say, well, we want 70%, and I don't know why owners wouldn't just say, well, all right, well then we won't play. You're better off not playing than losing all that money.
Well, here's an interesting list. I just found it, Kev. So here's the percentage of revenue given to athletes by each league. MLB is 54%, NBA is 50%, NHL is 50%, the NFL is 48%, the PGA Tour is 27%, UFC is 16%, and tennis is 14%.
Wow.
Wow.
I was trying to dig back, by the way, just because I have this really cool program that someone wrote me years ago that they gave me for my computer, which is really neat. That searches back to when things were originated. So I was trying to find the Clayton Keller origination of Clayton Keller being on the market. And essentially, it looks as if back in May, Elliot Friedman brought it up as something he had heard that was possible, that Clayton Keller could be possibly moved. And then it was just like, and then again on September 30th, Elliot Friedman put it in his 31 thoughts, would they consider testing the market for Clayton Keller? And beyond that, I can't find a single I
think I have an answer for that.
Legitimate person who put anything out about a Clayton Keller trade.
I have an answer. So there was a time when they were negotiating with Taylor Hall, and they probably figured if we trade Clayton Keller, that's $4.5 million a year that we get back to use for Taylor Hall. And I think maybe that was the thinking.
Oh, and then Ed Olczyk at one point said, this was on August 30th. Olczyk said, he said maybe you could trade Clayton Keller for Cody Ceci and something else. I forget, a couple other draft picks. But it's just like, and it sounded like it was just totally in jest. Like it was a joke thing that he said, and people laughed at it. I don't know. I'm just saying this is the origins of Clayton Keller being on the fire. I don't see Clayton Keller going.
If Elliott's reporting it, I put stock in it.
But he's just saying he wonders if they would test it. He's
right.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did not say that. He just said, "What if?" And I do that occasionally. Just trade rumors that I not trade rumors, but trade ideas that I think would work.
Yeah, right, exactly. And
here's something teams are trying. Like I just saw Vegas has a new jersey. I think they're the second or third team to unveil new jerseys this offseason. So they're going to try that too.
New Jersey already.
New Jersey. I just
retweeted. Third jersey.
I know another jersey because usually teams wait a little
while. Gold inspired, supposedly.
The 14th version of the third jersey.
Right. Right. So this is the 17th jersey. Russ, do you have any prospects for us before we get out of here today?
I don't know. Who do you want to talk?
You know what? Hold on. Let's hold off. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's make Monday a prospect show completely.
Let me ask Russ a question here because I think this is a good one that our fans, our watchers would like to know. I mean, to me, almost the draft starts at 4 because I say that, but I think that the top 3 may not for sure go the way that people think it will. Like somebody could jump up and not take Stitzel and take Rossi instead, or Raymond, or something like that. I mean, do you think that's possible, Russ?
For who? Which team?
Anybody.
Any of the teams. Probably the number 3 hole.
So in the 3 hole. So I mean, for Ottawa, that first pick, the only clear clue that we have from Pierre Dorion is he wants an NHL player. So he wants someone he could play in the NHL. So
is that the right draft then?
Yeah, he sure is. Because none of these guys can play in the NBA.
Did I said NHL? I thought.
I know.
No. We're being sarcastic.
He's drafting a hockey player.
No, you said NHL, and I think Dorian.
You didn't say NHL this year.
Yeah, this year. I get it. An NHL player right away.
So he wants a player he can play right away. So if Stutzel's there, that's going to be his guy. Because there's no question it's him or Byfield for the second spot. They're going to hope he can play center. But even if he doesn't play center, he's got more offensive upside than Byfield. But Byfield is a better all-around player and has a better physical side. And I don't think the point difference is going to be that close, that out of whack, rather that far away that it's that different. So I think they would go Stützle. Now, if they decided to take Drysdale because they wanted a defenseman first, they could circle back around and get Rossi because Marco Rossi can probably play in the NHL this year too.
Right.
Yeah.
The Austrian, he's also a center. He plays a little physical and dirty at times, which is good, but he plays around the net. He's got great offensive ability. He is a terrific passer, but he also can score. And he's one of those guys that definitely knows where the puck's going when he's around the net. So he's another one that with great skating looks like he could play in the NHL right away. So Ottawa's in a good spot because they probably will get one of each. I think that's what they'll do. I think they'll get an offensive player and a defensive player, and I think it will depend on what the Kings do. But if the Kings leave Byfield for them, that will be a dilemma, I think, for them, only because of their, hey, we want someone to play in the NHL right away. And then if they let it sit, what are they out of the 5th pick, I think, after that?
Yeah.
So that's where that could get into jeopardy if they let it get to the 5th pick and not do that.
Russ, I love the chatter that came out in the last 24 hours that Eugene Melnick wants Dorian to take Askarov.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't buy it because
the Hockey News has got in their mock draft has that.
Do they have that?
I don't think Dorian would do it with the first pick, though. The 3rd pick.
5.
Right. He would have to do it with 5. But again, Askarov's not playing in the NHL this year. So to spend the number 5 on him and have to wait 2 years, maybe even 3, depending on what he can make in Russia and if he wants to come over, that's a risky proposition. And that's something where, yes, you might get the best goalie in the draft, but how long are you willing to wait for him?
Is that the thing? Like, could he play in the NHL this year if he's willing to?
He can't play until the end of the season.
He can't play this year, right? Gotcha. He's good enough to play right away.
Yeah, he is good enough to play right away. To what degree? Wow. I'm not sure yet. He's doing great in the KHL, but there's an adjustment period when you come over. And so I don't know. I mean, Shesterkin we could say he was thrown right in, but he had played for years and
He's 24 years old.
Right.
Well,
big difference.
Kev, this is where, like we've said on the show previously, that Askarov is the wild card. He could go anywhere from 4 to 15. He could, but where I find it's like I haven't seen one list that says the top 3 would be in any particular order: Lafreniere, Byfield, Stützle. It's always number 4 where it's either Rossi or Perfetti or Askarov or Drysdale.
What I love best about that is nobody, and I mean no one, with the exception of maybe Pat Verbeek, who's in the Red Wings organization, and he's Yzerman's right-hand man. I would say nobody has any idea what Yzerman's going to do.
No. I'll give you my hunch with this, though, Kev. So when the NHL had all the prospects on last Saturday, I was on for all of them, and Perfetti had told us that on his last call, Yzerman was on the call but never said anything. He left his screen black, never said a word.
Doing yoga, that's what he told us.
Right. But he's not the only GM that does that. There's another GM in the league, too, that does that. Now, we don't know what he's doing with the lights off. Like, is he with somebody else and analyzing what he's saying? Is he just want to hear it himself?
I don't even want to hear that. We don't know what he's doing.
The lights off.
Yeah.
He's doing downward dog or whatever.
But the idea was Perfetti didn't crack under pressure for that. And
I just picture him in the corner eating Oreos. Like,
Perfetti's a really smart kid, could be a franchise center. He was second in the OHL in scoring. When you look at all those things and you look at how Yzerman brought along the Wings as a young player, you think that Yzerman might look at Perfetti and say, this is how I did it. We could do it with this kid. And I think there's a chance of that.
You and a bunch of analysts are in agreement on that. I mean, you see that all the time, that, he's the comparison to Yzerman is what, we had an analyst on my podcast and he said pretty much word for word what you just said.
Yeah. And so you could see the ability of that to happen.
Yeah. I don't have any idea, but the one thing I would say is that, they're building a speed team here. They got Larkin.
Yep.
They talked a lot about speed. And that's why I think, he'd be more inclined. Like the one thing, the criticism of Perfetti is he's not an unbelievable skater.
Not yet. But I mean, he's young. Yzerman wasn't an unbelievable skater either, right? So,
Yzerman was real good
at the beginning. I don't remember. Yeah,
I covered his first training camp.
Yeah, I just don't remember him being that fast at the beginning. But he needs to work there. He does.
Yeah, even in his first year, he was a breakaway waiting to happen. He was a very good player.
I remember my dad being a Detroit Red Wings fan and the Red Wings being bad for such a long time. Oh my gosh, I'll never forget how excited my dad was when Yzerman got to that team.
Yeah, I still have the story where they weighed the prospects coming in, and Yzerman was 153 pounds. So
that's funny.
Pounds.
I will tell you this: I think the Devils could make out the best. Because if it goes anything close to the mock draft I did and they get Alexander Holtz, they'll be getting the guy with the best shot in the draft. And he's a great passer, and he's already playing among men, and he gets talked about so much. He's not even talked about as much as any of the other top 10 guys because he's relatively quiet. But you know what? This guy is a tremendous talent, and the Devils do need a guy that can put the puck in the net.
He's a scorer. Now, will some NFL loving or college football loving player nickname Holtz when he shows up Lou?
Not after Lou's recent runs on a few shows this year. Probably not.
Yeah, that's right.
Probably not. All right, guys, got to get out of here. That is all the time I have for today. We'll be back on Monday. Now, this weekend is going to be hockey all the time, so I'm going to be constantly, and we may end up doing a quick podcast if some things break down because. Talking to a couple of my buddies, they think that tonight, Saturday, Sunday, we're going to see trades like crazy. So stay on top of it. We'll be posting the rumor tracker. We'll be starting shortly on Hockey Buzz. And remember, Tuesday, 6 o'clock for the draft. We'll be starting our show then. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you.